Hey guys, here's a video on how to write your essay for the White Tiger novel response. To begin with, I'll go through an introduction, which you'll be able to refer to help you write your own introduction based on the three themes that you've chosen or one developed theme. So to begin with, we have an opening that establishes the author and the title of the novel, such as Aravind Aldiga's The White Tiger establishes various stylistic and language features to convey his ideas of Indian society through the life of protagonist Bahram Hawal, who experiences family compulsions, the risk of ambition on morality, and the influences of corruption. Now, to be clear, we can see that the orange addresses the essay question by using specific language from the essay question, but not all of it, by extending upon that idea about Indian society, and provides context of the story. So the basic summary of the narrator and in link to the themes that this student explores, the three themes. Please note that the full name of the author is only mentioned once in this entire essay, and that's at the start. Meanwhile, The White Tiger as a title is embedded with quotes, unlike a film that is italicized, so please be mindful of that. They then move on and establish that The White Tiger, set in India in the early 2000s, is framed as a letter written from the narrative perspective of budding entrepreneur Bahram Hawal, whose journey to riches through immoral actions transforms his character from guiltless to shameful. Here we have a nice summary of the plot, which establishes not only the plot itself, but also the narrative perspective, which helps to meet that knowledge and understanding of the stylistic conventions and features the author uses within this text. It is an episodary novel text, but this still shows that the student has an understanding of the unreliable narrator, meanwhile expanding upon what they plan to address within the essay. They move on to say Aldiga presents, so they don't use his full name. They might vary and say the author or writer, but there's going to be some modality in them changing it. But Aldiga presents the cyclical nature of obligations through family bonds, highlighting the deterioration and vulnerability of characters as they respect their responsibilities to their families. We can see here that it establishes the author's intention. This is what we want. You're essentially arguing in this essay what Aldiga presents or wants us to think and feel. We'll see some of these underlined words such as the comparative and connectives to help show that, which we'll refer to later on in this video, but we can see here that they're not just saying Aldiga presents the nature or the need for family obligations, but the student clearly expands upon it as to what their evidence shows without actually using any evidence in the introduction. So be mindful of that. We can see that there's no mention of theme either, which we've already covered. They go on to say, through the development of ambition, Aldiga illustrates a decline in morality for his protagonist, and finally, Aldiga demonstrates the influences of corruption on a young Bahram. Through this color coding and reminder, you can see that they've previewed each of their three main ideas without giving specific examples, but they're also linking each one to each other by using those connectives, showing how they translate and join. They then end on what is a powerful statement which summarizes the author's viewpoint. They don't need to readdress the question, but they say Bahram's ambitious transformation into a white tiger then highlights Aldiga's position of the broken family obligation and corrupt class system that requires some humans to act like animals in order to rule the jungle of the Indian streets. Here we have the student giving a summary of Aldiga's position in a clever and powerful way by referring to the jungle, which is a direct quote from the novel, but also noting the highlighting that they've addressed all three themes in one powerful statement. This is set to 130 words, so it's short, sharp, and shiny. Make that 167 to be exact, but it's still within the word count range. Moving on to the example body paragraphs, we can see an example right here, which is color-coded. And just a reminder, as we've already been through, we're looking for a point sentence to establish the start of what the paragraph will be about. We can see evidence directly taken from the novel, whether it be direct quotes. Very few moments at paraphrase, but there are links. This isn't an assignment where you are here to recount plots, but rather address the evidence, the specific technique, whether it be stylistic, language, or convention that Aldiga is using, and of course an explanation as to what he wants the audience to think and feel in relation to those bigger themes and context of India's society and corruption and poverty. We have a link which will be addressed, and of course a closing sentence or statement. So we have Aldiga repeatedly highlights the corruption of Bowram's role models, foreshadowing his own transformation. So we have a preview of exactly what examples we're going to see. We note that they use the connective or illustrative of highlights, but they don't just say corruption, they say of Bowram's role and foreshadowing his own transformation. Their first example begins with Bowram experiences corruption at a young age, recounting childhood memories. So we can see here in the blue, we have a number of examples of technique, whether it be recount of childhood memories, which is a flashback. We have the narrative voice and relaxed approach. We then have a comparison to a character. But as I read on, it says recounting childhood memories of a school teacher who stole their lunch money and their school uniforms that the government has sent for them in order to make up for not receiving his salary in months. The student here has shown that high level of embedding of quotes where they haven't just quoted and completed a sentence, but fluidly embedded three to show the evidence of those childhood memories, because there are multiple recounts by Bowram. They go on to state that Bowram's narrative voice and relaxed approach to corruption suggests to the audience that the school teacher's corruption follows the ways of India at a point in time which suggests why Bowram does not blame the school teacher for his actions. So they're giving that bigger picture as to what Aldiga wants us to think and understand. All of this is written in literary present tense, which is a reminder at the end of this with regards to the rubric, where Aldiga isn't, it's always written in present formal tense of Aldiga uses or shows or suggests. But as I read on, we see a connective of furthermore. This is to help link one example to the next. And we have that linking sentence of furthermore, Bowram learns the full potential of being corrupt through his childhood hero Vijay. So we've already discussed that a grade paragraph will not only show multiple examples, but multiple perspectives. In this instance, we have Bowram's reflection on his school teacher, but now specifically drawing upon Aldiga's use of a sub or minor character that appears only in Bowram's conversations and reflection, known as Vijay. And they say Aldiga utilizes Vijay as a motif of corruption. So they're not just saying that they use Vijay as a character, but a motif which is reoccurring of corruption, with Bowram idolizing Vijay as a person who had made it in life, since Vijay came from being the lowest of the low through a course of immoral actions such as letting the politician dip his beak in his backside, which we've discussed is a reference to allowing a higher politician to rape the young boy or male in this instance. They go on to explain that Bowram's admiration. So we can see that they don't just say Bowram says, they say think, or they actually add some emotive to what his reflections are, whether it be admiration, disgust, or joy. But here we have Bowram's admiration for Vijay's ability, it should be, to escape poverty and inequality as an entrepreneur through unethical actions, normalizes the corruption in India to both Bowram and the reader. So we have that direct analysis of how it shows that Bowram sees this as being normal and okay and the way to climb the ranks, but also help the reader understand, therefore, in a way, creating sympathy. And it says this helps to justify Bowram's tainted morality as he imitates Vijay's links to obtain more power. We then have that closing statement, which once again does not say theme, but it summarizes the examples and gives an overall powerful summary as to what we're meant to walk away with understanding. So Aldiga reflects that Bowram has grown up around corruption through his school teacher and childhood hero Vijay, and understands the ways to escape poverty and servitude, although it may come at a moral cost. Now, this is just one paragraph example, but this is at an A grade level because it has variation of technique, specifically as to what Aldiga is doing to make that evidence clear. There's the normalization, or rather formal literary voice, and of course the intended effect on the reader as to what they should think and feel in relation to the bigger context of corruption and class structure in India. Now, a note on comparative and connective language. We've seen here that they only use the one furthermore, but these are great ways to help make sure that you're getting into that idea of addressing or linking ideas, or better yet, showing the intended effect or example as a whole. So a note on comparative and connective language. Here we have a nice chart that you'll have, I guess, access to, which relates to whether you're adding further evidence or analysis to your point. So you might say further, comma, furthermore, comma, as in the example, in addition, and the list goes on. However, you can also use connectives to highlight the importance of example or piece of analysis. So notably or significantly, or in particular, or especially. We then have comparing difference, and we've discussed how in the rubric we want to see that within paragraphs or even examples that you're noting how the author uses either different characters, different perspectives, different techniques to explore an idea. It shows how they're using more than one technique or idea to do that, and that way we can begin with alternatively, in contrast, on the other hand, instead, while, or unlike. If we need to incorporate examples or begin that sentence as a statement, we can say, for instance, or as shown by, and the list goes on. Just like we can note similarity as opposed to difference by saying equally or likewise or in the same way, but of course drawing conclusions in that final statement or even the conclusion itself. These are at your disposal. They'll work to help you order your ideas if you're struggling as to how to begin a sentence, but we want to make sure that we vary them to help with modality. So, to focus on the conclusion or idea of a great conclusion, we can read the following: that Aldiga's The White Tiger depicts the impacts of family obligation, ambition, and corruption. We can see here through the color coding and reminder that it's a short, sharp sentence to summarize the three main themes without saying theme. However, they go on to state that the impact of Barham's rejection of family obligations highlights, so we're talking about the author's intention, the break in cyclical nature that has occurred over generations. Conversely, Ashok's dedication to his father highlights the vulnerability of weak-minded characters in India at that time. We can already tell then that this student has used various or two different perspectives, noting the comparative or conversely. I would actually have reminded them to change highlight so it's not repeated twice. So think about the modality, but we can clearly see that they've summarized Aldiga's intention of exploring the first theme. It should then come as no surprise then that they address the second theme and third theme by stating the Aldiga's intention of lack of obligation and fulfillment on Barham's behalf introduced his ambitious attitude, leading to the demise of his morality. And finally, through numerous views on corrupt characters, Barham understands what a corrupt mindset can achieve. Here, that color for third should just be a yellow, but the idea of the color coding is just to help you see how they're able to address each theme. We can see that this isn't superficial. This is direct and also varied based on what evidence they've given. Regardless, they end on another powerful statement and summarize as the whole of the text of Aldiga effectively uses Barham's slow and deceptive rise to the backdrop of a corrupt India to suggest how it can result in a lower caste system being controlled or offer them an opportunity for a character to grow if manipulated to their advantage. So there's a bit of, I guess, tense issues there, but you get the gist of a well-rounded conclusion that is far from being just a copy and paste of the introduction. So a reminder on the rubric, just to wrap things up, we have the KU1, which is whereby at an A standard, we're wanting to see a development of one or three themes where there's a range of evidence in the novel that shows either Barham's or other characters' perspectives. Overall, the essay will show a high level and knowledge of this, of the chosen themes from explaining those perspectives, but also the wider impact it has on the world or country the novel is set in. This is where we can see that in those analysis of the intended effect, but even in that conclusion. We then see that KU2 wants to see how the student has understood that an author uses a range of stylistic features, conventions, and language to make meaning. So we're looking for 4 to 5 over the entire essay that are great examples of evidence. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and embed more from multiple examples or embed them fluently, as we've seen here, but it means that we're addressing throughout an essay, whether it be how the plot is used or setting, characterization, key techniques such as symbolism or illusion, or even the basics of then within those examples, how simile, metaphor, alliteration, and motive language, or even imagery is used, along with the different ways in which this evidence or information is revealed through Barham. Think about how or when we find out information and when it is meant to be an impact on the reader. For analysis, this is where we see that complex analysis because of the evidence is complex, but they explain how the conventions help to show the opinion of the author in relation to the bigger picture of India, and that means that a complex analysis is one that's drawn upon multiple examples that are both similar and different in what they're trying to say, whether in message or even technique, and this can be once again explored through different characters' perspectives, settings, and symbols throughout the entire novel and within the paragraphs. Perceptive analysis of language features, or AN2, then means that the analysis isn't superficial. This means that as through the example, we're meant to understand the intended effect in relation to the themes without it just being a repetition of this shows Balram is corrupt. Instead, it shows how he idolizes corruption or accepts it, and depending on your example. But go and have a look at the A or the other example paragraphs that we've covered. Application then comes down to how fluently this is embedded in terms of evidence for AP1, and I think the A example speaks for itself. This is where the student will then embed key pieces or quotes without it just being a complete sentence, and making sure that it is in literary present tense. And then, of course, sophistication, use of accurate and clear and fluent expression. So we've discussed the literary present tense. We also see here that it's within the necessary word count, and of course the sentence structure when it relates to getting those examples out, and of course just using comparative language where necessary, along with basic spelling and grammar. I hope this has been of help, and of course you can access the PowerPoint and see me during lesson, but this will be your main source as to remind you how to write the essay this week. Thank you.